I used to hear the name whispered around town. Phatee Dudu. A ridiculous name, sure. One that should have belonged to a joke, or some playground nickname meant to tease the chubby kid. But in our town, Phatee Dudu was anything but a joke. He was the local legend no one wanted to talk about openly, not after dark. The first time I heard the story, I was 12. My friends and I were staying up late, telling ghost stories in my basement. You know, typical slumber party stuff. That's when Danny brought him up. His voice was low, barely above a whisper. He said that if you go to the old storm drain at the edge of town and call his name 3 times, Phatee Dudu comes. I laughed, thinking it was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard, but Danny swore it was real. You think it's a joke, he said, eyes wide. But my cousin did it. He went to the storm drain with a couple of his buddies, dared to say the name. They never found him, not a trace. We didn't believe him, of course. But kids will be kids, and dares turn into stupid ideas faster than you can blink. The next night, we grabbed our bikes and rode out to the storm drain. The drain was deep in the woods, a place no one bothered with anymore. The air felt thick, like even the trees were trying to warn us off. Still, we laughed it off as we crept closer to the rusting grate. It was larger than I thought, big enough for someone to crawl inside. Do it, Danny said, nudging me. I was the last one to agree to the plan, so I was the one who had to say it. Classic kid logic. I stepped up to the drain, feeling the cold breeze blowing up from its dark, wet tunnel. Phatee Dudu, I said, my voice trembling. Nothing. I said it again. Phatee Dudu. A branch snapped in the woods behind us, but I tried to ignore it. Phatee Dudu. Silence. I laughed, turning back to the group. See? Nothing happened. The drain hissed. We all froze. It was faint at first, like water running, but there hadn't been rain for weeks. And then I heard it. Footsteps, wet and squelching, coming from deep inside the drain. My breath caught in my throat and I couldn't move. I told you, Danny muttered, backing away. I told you we shouldn't have. Something moved in the shadows. A wet, glistening hand shot out from the drain, clawing at the concrete. It was bloated, skin so tight it looked ready to burst. The stench that followed was unbearable, rotting flesh and sewer water. We screamed. I don't remember running, just the pounding of my heart and the echo of our footsteps crashing through the woods. But the worst part? As we ran, I swear I could hear him behind us, his wheezing breath, heavy and labored. I could hear the squish of his feet as they hit the muddy ground. We didn't stop running until we reached the town's edge, and even then, no one spoke. We swore never to talk about it, not after what we saw, not after the way Danny's face turned pale every time someone mentioned Phatee Dudu's name. Weeks went by and we all tried to move on, except Danny. He wasn't the same after that night. His eyes always darted to the woods and he stopped hanging out with us. Then, one night, he disappeared. They said he must have run away, but I knew better. I knew where he went. I knew who took him. Now, every time it rains, I hear that wheezing breath, echoing in the storm drains. I hear the squish of those bloated feet, inching closer, waiting for the next fool to call his name. And I know one thing for certain. Phatee Dudu is real, and he's still out there, waiting.